right, there we go. It is official. All right, welcome again, everyone, to the Laurie Okuma Memorial Reading. I'm Megan Marshall, and I'm the director of the Hugh C. Hyde Living Writers Series. Tonight, we continue our celebration of National Poetry Month with an amazing poet who has stayed up very late to join us all the way from Chicago. And even though we are coming to you via Zoom tonight, I do want to acknowledge the Kumeyaay land that we are privileged to inhabit and share here in San Diego. And as members of the SDSU community, we acknowledge, respect, and celebrate their legacy. I'd also like to take a moment to thank those who have helped to make this event possible, and that includes Markle Tumlin, my fabulous co-host, and our other friends from Love Library, Danya Muka Hall, Laura Bliss, and Rebecca Williamson. And I'd also like to thank the Department of English and Comparative Literature for their support of the series. And tonight, I'd like to issue a very, very special thanks to the Okuma family for the endowment that allows us to honor the memory of a very special SDSU MFA alumna, Laurie Matsueda Okuma, by featuring the work of a women poet or prose writer. In addition to earning her MFA, Laurie also taught at SDSU and was committed to bringing attention to women writers whose voices are often marginalized. So we are happy and honored to celebrate her legacy tonight, along with her family's continued support. So just a couple final reminders, if you're just joining us, please be sure to keep your mic muted during the presentation and know that this event is being recorded. If you'd like to view the recording after the event has concluded, in addition to tons of other Living Writers related content, please check out the Hugh C. Hyde Living Writers series on YouTube. Once the reading portion has concluded, you'll have a chance to ask some questions of our guest author, who, without further ado, I am excited to introduce. Naoko Fujimoto was born, raised in Nagoya, Japan, and studied at Nanzan Junior College. She was an exchange student and received a BA and MA from Indiana University. Her poetry collections are We Face the Tremendous Meat on the Teppan, winner of the C&R Press Summer Tide Pool Chapbook Award, Where I Was Born, winner of the Editor's Choice by Willow Books, Glyph Graphic Poetry equals Trans Sensory by Tupelo Press, as well as 4 additional chapbooks. She is RHINO Associate and Translation Editor and Tupelo Quarterly Translation Editor, and she is also a Breadloaf Translation Scholarship recipient. The great poet and activist, Audre Lorde, posits, "Poetry is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity of our existence." Naoko's dedication to both craft and community extends this assertion and shows us how poetry can be a necessary mode of celebration, of mourning, of inquiry, of perception, and perhaps most importantly, of reclaiming voices that have been silenced or lost. Her work explores these universal concerns, while her interactive and instructive website, Fuji Hub, invites fellow literary citizens to do so in their own ways. Of her most recent chapbook, We Face the Tremendous Meat on the Teppan, from which she'll be sharing tonight, author Ananda Lima raves, "This long poem of firecrackers scatter inside aluminum pots, carbonated moons, and parchment fingers is a masterful in its language and its interrogation of time, trauma, ancestors, and what it means to be a descendant. It beautifully and horrifyingly inhabits the rich complexity of the equation, she is here, so I am here." So please join me in giving a warm, silent clap. Welcome to Naoko Fujimoto.
Thank you so much for lovely introduction, Megan, and thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm so happy to read my poems and show some of the graphic poems tonight with you. So first, I have 3 types of poetry styles. I would like to introduce you 3 my poetry styles first, then I'm going to share screen with you. So I'm going to talk about 20 minutes, maybe around 20 minutes. First 10 minutes, I'm going to share my creative process, my writing process. And the last 10 minutes, I'm going to read from first 10 pages of We Face the Tremendous Meat on the Teppan graphic version. So originally, this poem was written for graphic poem. Then I switched to text collage. So today I'm going to talk about why I switched to graphic poem to text collage. So I have 3 poetry styles. First, this is my first poetry book where I was, as you can see, this is like a regular poetry, free verse, following the traditional writing. It's a regular poem. Also, I have a Glyph graphic poetry equal transensory. So this is graphic poem, very colorful and intertwined with words and images, graphic poem. Then just text collage. We faced a tremendous meet on the Teppan is a text collage. So what is a text collage? As you can see, I play with the space, and it is untraditional line breaks and visually organized here. So that is my 3 patterns. So let me share the screen with you here. Can you see? Yes, okay, good. So I like playing with the words and images. So here, word poems, it's just like a regular poetry format. Graphic poems and the text collage that you read for your class, the chapbook. But as I said, it was originally created for graphic poem, but I switched to text collage. Why? Why did I choose? Why did I choose a text collage style? For we faced a tremendous meet on the Teppan. So this is Nagoya Castle. So I took this photo in April in 2017. So you can see cherry blossom, you can see water and moat. So the original stone walls there, and then you can see cherry blossom, Nagoya Castle, and then hazy Japanese spring sky. And then if you look at very carefully, you can see 2 yellow dots. They are kinshachi. As you may notice, they are unfamiliar words in my chapbook, like such as Teppan, Fusuma, kinshachi. Though you may not know those words, you may be able to create images for them in your mind from the description. So let's see 2 examples of those words. One is kinshachi, golden carp. 2 lines from my chapbook, page 4. The kinshachi on the castle is a golden nugget, perhaps large shrimp tempura-like. I didn't say carp, but I captured the charming characteristic of kinshachi. And then let's see the actual kinshachi picture here. So this is I took, and those are all the photos by Tokugawa Yoshikatsu. Tokugawa Yoshikatsu was a governor in the very end of Edo period, before Japanese government and the Japanese society became more westernized. So it was the end of Edo era. But Tokugawa Yoshikatsu likes a Western culture, and he likes taking a photo. So those photos are available at the Tokugawa Art Museum in Nagoya. Also, this museum is known for keeping a collection of picture scrolls for Tale of Genji. So some of them you may know the Tale of Genji. So the Tokugawa Art Museum has some of the oldest picture scrolls for those literature. So if you have a chance, you may visit the Tokugawa Art Museum in Japan, in Nagoya as well. So another example is Fusuma, the 2 lines from my chapbook, page 3. I stand in the burning chaos, holding a fusuma, a large sliding paper door. So this description is very clear, a paper door. So let's see fusuma here. So I took just a photo in the Honmaru Goten, Honmaru Palace at the Nagoya Castle. So there's a two fusumas there. Let's see. They are cherry blossoms, and they are birds. They are pheasant. The pheasant has a long tail. And those birds are very popular for Japanese literature. You can see those art also words in even 7th century of waka poem. And then if you see the next room, you see the pine tree on the wall, and there's a tatami mattress. So the tatami mattress is, you can see the details of tatami, the trims, and it's interesting fact, the actual traditional tatami mattress is very soft. It's almost like a carpet. And you cannot step on tatami at the Nagoya Castle. However, you can experience to step on the actual tatami in Kyoto. The temple's name is Toji. To is east, Ji is a temple, East Temple. If you go to East Temple, there is a small additional temple around main temple, and there is actual authentic traditional tatami. You can walk on it. It's very soft, and then also you can see Miyamoto Musashi's art. You may know Miyamoto Musashi is the warrior, the sword master. His art is at the Toji in Kyoto as well. So if you would like to step on the actual tatami mattress, you may visit there too. Then back to Nagoya Castle. So this Honmaru Palace was destroyed by fire in 1945 during World War II. But now it's rebuilt, and then the restoration was completed. It's gorgeous, and it's a very beautiful place to go there. However, some of the fusuma are blank without the drawing, because the historians cannot articulate the original art on each fusuma. So it's a very expensive project to rebuild Honmaru Palace again, but it's not just a financial problem, but also the original materials and the techniques might not be available in the current era. So I have a question for you, but you don't have to answer. You can keep the answer inside in your mind. My question is, did you create your fusuma image like the photo above when you read my chapbook? There is no right or wrong answer, but no, I didn't. Even I didn't imagine the fusuma like that, the cherry blossom and the pheasant or other animals and birds. Another picture I would like to show you here. So this is the exhibition at the Nagoya Castle. There's a two object, a verb, a black and white photo of Nagoya Castle. Nagoya Castle is burning during the World War II. So you can see the triangle shape of roof, and there's a flaming. The flame stood out in the fire, and under the fire, there were two kinshachi burning. And the bottom part looks like an iron plate. It was a part of the incendiary bomb. So incendiary bomb is kind of a unique bomb. It's like one big container, and there is so many small, like a firecracker like stuff is inside. So it's a very effective way to keep burning, especially like a Japanese traditional houses or castles. They were made of paper and wood. So it was a very efficient way to burn down during the World War II. So I see this exhibition in castle every year, every season, because I grown up in Nagoya. And then my family, we always go to teppanyaki store, restaurant after just, seeing this exhibition. Then I always felt kind of a little bit very emotional, and then also I feel like kind of questionable feeling about after just a luxurious lunch or dinner. And this is the photo that I took in 2017, right before my pandemic. So I haven't been there for a long time. So this is the original castle, photo by Tokugawa Yoshikatsu. So this was right around the end of the Edo period. So now, I am going to read first 10 pages of We Face a Tremendous Meet on the Teppan, but I'm going to show you my graphic poetry version. So 12 pages of Abandon the First Approach. So as I said before, it was a graphic poem, but then changed to a text collage. I wanted to create like a comic version of art aesthetic, black and white, and a large rectangle sketchbook. However, I decided a text collage poem instead. So this is the statement why I chose to write with a text collage style. When a city randomizes, the identity of its citizens can be strugglingly destroyed. Like a blank fusuma as a part of their lives, a missing fusuma would be never recovered by future generations. My chapbook needed just uncertainness and concealment. Therefore, I decided to use a text collage style instead of showing graphics. But today, since you already read my chapbook, so I thought it's maybe a great idea to show graphic version to see a different dimension of just poetry creation. So I am going to read. We faced a tremendous meet on the Teppan. Amazon Alexa, remind me hard. Nagoya Castle is not a real castle, made of concrete with 2 large elevators, laminated stairs, slippery during rainy season, splashes making my shoes squeak. And I slip, hit my forehead. Firecrackers scatter inside aluminum pots. Now I hear Fusuma people scream. Oh, I am time traveling. I stand in the burning chaos holding a Fusuma, a large sliding paper door. And a few miles away, grandmother slides in the ditch where a horse hides. This is why I will be born after 40 years, though Nagoya Castle is not extinguished. People are running like blind beetles in rains of bullets. Dust plugs her ears and nose. Her head crouches down a hole by the ditch over a small bridge. And then in slow motion, when the bridge collapses, a tail brushes her face. Oh my, I am with an Oma-sama. The kinshachi on the castle is a golden nugget, perhaps large shrimp tempura-like, is tilted at first, then starts melting. Extremely hot 18-karat gold slowly sinking into the ceramic roof, swallowed up by this warhole. I am watching a supernova, sparks of copper, iron nails vaporizing gold, burning cypress pillar, ash-winged ants. It is horrifyingly beautiful. Fusuma, Fusuma, a man holds me another paper slipper door from the tatami room where the Tokugawa shogunate slept twice after passing rooms and rooms of Fusuma paintings. People dump water onto their heads. Men and women both they rush back and forth, grab more Fusuma and more paintings. Panels of hills by the seashore, boats float in. Whispers of silver glass, unreachable silk holograms illuminate human hearts. 2,000 years ago, a sleepless Japanese poet sang a song of a carbonated moon on a decaying boat with tangled dragnets separating his wife and 2 daughters. A pale white Japanese tit pecks its predator's brain, peck and peck, 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 flint sparks. One Fusuma starts flaring, the tit or sparrow or some kind of a bird still sits on a branch, maybe a peach tree, like a burnt toast, quietly turning brown. Amazon, Alexa, take pictures ice cream, but there is no phone, of course. My fingers are scorched. It is May 14, 1945, the bombing of Nagoya in World War II by the North American B-25 missile. Nearly 4,000 people died that day. That is why there are several blank Fusuma in their restored rooms in the castle. The historian cannot bring back burnt papers. Grandmother melts away backwards, crawling into her nest on the branch that shakes every minute. Cogwheels spiral downward deeper and farther until her steps do not appear in the desert of time. A woodpecker nips worms under the bark. The bird nibbles memories of why she's wandering around. She's here, so I am here. The simple equation. But how long does she keep eating the tremendous meat for us at the same restaurant rebuilt, where Mr. Suzuki took grandfather in 1938? Mr. Suzuki came back from Java, the island colonized by the Dutch, and then the Japanese. He had never put on geta slippers like the Japanese men around those streets. Instead, he wore the softest hem suits, a beautifully pressed hat, and black enamel shoes with socks. He took grandfather to a French restaurant the day before the war. The menu, written in cursive, lay next to marmalade in a tiny porcelain cup. He taught grandfather how to put the butter on a baguette. Together, they learned foreign languages in college from an old Japanese professor. They were innocent back then, ignorant of the flavors contained in those little colorful jam jars. Next year, Mr. Suzuki received a bright red note, recruited to the Philippines, and trampled by unknown insects until his last breath. Thank you so much for listening. So I am going to stop sharing my screen here. And I am also share my just text collage Teppan things. So if you'd like to see details of art, or if you missed what I said, you can revisit to enjoy my incomplete graphic form. But thank you so much for listening. now it's almost about 20, past just 20 minutes, but I'm happy to answer all the questions and any comments or anything.
Thank you so much, Naoko. That was beautiful. And to get to see the synthesis from the original kind of version to what ended up in the text collage in the chapbook was really, really evocative. So we like to do this little thing. I know it's kind of it's strange when we're reading on Zoom and you don't get to actually hear the applause that you so deserve. So we'll take a minute before we go to Q&A. If you want to unmute yourself, let Naoko hear your applause for that beautiful reading. Yeah.
For applause.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll feel you guys. Thank you.
All right. So now we are definitely ready for some questions. You are certainly welcome to put a question into the chat if you'd like, and we'll get to as many as we can with the time we have allotted. Or if you want to use the little hand raise function on Zoom, I can call on you. You can unmute yourself and ask it straight to Naoko. So where should we start? Who has a question for us? I know you have them. Don't be afraid. Okay, so Jose has a question in the chat. It says the images of peaches come up pretty often, and I wanted to know if there's a cultural significance around peaches or if there is a personal interest in them.
That's a good observation. Thank you so much. Who was the person's name? Jose?
Jose, yes, in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, peach has a significant lots of image, also meaning from Asian culture. It's Asian literature. A lot of Chinese poet writes about peaches, and one actually funny poem, very short Chinese poem. Don't fix your hat under the peach trees because it looks like you are stealing the peach. So that's one of the famous Chinese poem. So Japanese literatures are deeply influenced by Chinese, South Korea, and then all the Asian culture, because all the literature language came from there and they involve to Japanese literature, Japanese languages. So peaches is one of the historic, it's a very popular word, also popular image to adapt into the historical texts, literature.
Thank you very much for that question. That was something that came up in our class discussion, was yes, we noticed that was a recurring image and what that might have signified. So thank you, Jose, for throwing that in the chat. And then let's see, Mike, did you have a question? I know you're muted now, but I thought maybe you had wanted to ask a question. Oh, no. Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. We had a couple other questions. Let's see in the chat. So Rodney asked, so Naoko, do you do all the artwork yourself as well as the writing?
Yes, I do all my work. Here, this is the actual, it's actually big. And then you can see the art. I'm not a very good painter or drawing, but I do my best. So I mimic art. This is one of from the Fusuma art from the Nagoya castle. So if you see, especially the old photo that the photographer took, that's I adapted, but as you can see, it's during World War II, so it's the burning art, but I imitated all that like structure.
Well, I think you're a better artist than you give yourself credit for, Naoko.
Thank you so much. But I like drawing. well, I still need to learn more. I'm not the professional painter, right? Drawing, but it's a part of my creative process.
Well, I guess kind of along those same lines about the art. Miriam asked, what inspirations or connections do you draw from the images you choose?
That's a good question. So everything. So a lot of people actually tell me, "Oh, Naoko, you are super lucky because you are from Japan. Naoko, you are always traveling back to Japan or other countries or other because it's a part of my lifestyle." But yes, that part I am very fortunate. But inspirations are always around me. Even though the small things, it doesn't have to be very special. Actually, I have a great example. So yesterday I went to a Japanese bookstore and then I bought this is $5 and you can actually make your own comic and it's only $5. And then my husband and I made a little first page was the it's kind of harder to see, but story was something dropped outside. So I went to outside and pick it up, but my shoes was outside because I was being very Japanese. I took off shoes in front of my front door. So the shoes was outside and then I forgot to pick them up to inside. So my husband was laughing. So we talk about and then we drew. It's the one of inspiration. I don't know it's going to be a poem, but it's a part of the creative process, I think.
Thank you. And great to see another example too. I hope that that does turn itself into a poem in some way. Okay, let's see. We had another question in the chat from Hannah. And Hannah said, I know that all of the poems in Teppan are extremely powerful, rooted in history and deeply thematic. It's a very, very beautiful work and was refreshing to read. And I was curious to know whether if there was any poem in particular that you connected to the most emotionally above all others, or alternately, which poem from the sequence did you find yourself revising the most?
Okay, that's a very good question, Hannah. So there's a two question, right? Like the first question is, so I used to interview the breast cancer patient. And I wrote about poems about breast cancer. And then now it has been a good 10, 15 years. People I interviewed passed away. So that's whenever I reread my first draft or interview piece, I remember about them, and that's become very emotional, or I think about what is life. And then second, revised one, I revised a lot. I recycle my poems all the time because of there is always a potential. Like there's a great example, like my poems, some of my poems here reincarnated to graphic poem, but it's a two different format and two different approaches. And then I have a theory behind, because this one has all the materials, all the details have each meaning to it. So, so that type of a creative process, I think it's important. There's no rule. If you write one poem, you don't have to be finished. You can develop over years, when you are 19 or when you are 29, when you are 39, 49, those age, your perspective or the way you're thinking is going to be developed and changed. So when you revisit all the writing format or like drawing or any other art materials, I think you will find another new concept and you would like to develop those things more. That's I do.
Well, I love the idea of kind of recycling your own work in such a way, or maybe taking something that didn't quite work as you thought it would in one format, and then being able to re-envision it in a new format. I think that's great advice.
Exactly. That is the Teppan, just my the mouthful long, my mouthful long chapbook that we faced a tremendous meet on the Teppan. When I was creating graphic poem, I was like, it's not right, it's not right. And it took me actually for a while to finish this book. But once this book was done, I'm very happy when I chose text collage. So the Teppan has two styles, right? Like a graphic version, but it's incomplete, and then the written form. So there is no rules. So Hannah, right? Hannah, I hope you true to your earth aesthetic and carry on what you are doing. There's no rules.
Yes, that is a beautiful thing about poetry and literature in general. There's no rules, right? We can do whatever we want. Okay, there was another question from Ben in the chat. So on the chapbook, the point of view switches back and forth between grandmother, mother, granddaughter, but they are often told in vivid detail by the daughter, and we see this in the first poem that you shared. Was this a storytelling device, or is there an implication that these scenes were so painful and visceral for the culture that they can be felt so vividly in later generations, not present for the actual events?
So this is the comment. Also, what was that question?
Oh yeah, so the switching back and forth between the point of views, but mostly, we see things kind of filtered through the one point of view, the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a device, or is there an implication that these scenes were so painful and visceral that they can be felt so vividly in later generations, not present for the event? So, sort of the main speaker of the poems was not present for the bombing and the fire, but yet can still feel it so viscerally.
I see. Well, yes. Also, as another point of just chapbook, I am very thankful that C&R Press took it, because think about it. If I live in 1940s, if I published this book, I would probably be killed, or this book could never be published. So the storytelling point of view, what my grandparents experienced, and the war trauma is never be erased, unfortunately. When I was I grown up in a peaceful community, but there are remnants of war still. Like in Nagoya, they have a large Mitsubishi plants. The Mitsubishi plants were, they are mainly making warplanes during the World War II. So that's another reason Nagoya became a target for the war. So if you walk around those facilities, you see kind of like bullets or bombing, like remains, or even so many years later, we still find unexploded bomb underneath when they are, rebuilding the roads, or, like building a construction. So when I think about that, I am very thankful for now. I'm living in the United States, and then I am freely express and about my creativity, and it's not very easy. It's majority of the time it's hesitation, also difficulty to talk about war. It's a very sensitive matter. But it's very important to talk about, especially we are still having a war. That is the, we some point the human have to learn what we are doing and what we shouldn't do. But unfortunately, the situation will never change. But what we can do as a writers and artists to create safe, creative community. So another thing is the San Diego State University. I'm very thankful because you guys, Professor Megan Marshalls and then other fellow professors and students are creative, safe environment to writers and fellow writers can share their thoughts and opinion. That's incredible things. That's, I think it's a, I hope this is the answer for Ben's question.
Thank you. Well, I think the theme of the intergenerational trauma was something that we had discussed a lot in class, and just almost the idea of the tremendous meat on the Teppan being somewhat of a metaphor for that, right? You know, how long does she have to continue, you know, eating this essentially? Yes, Araceli, I see you have a question.
Hi, well, thank you very much for reading your poems. I love your voice. Your Japanese accent lends authenticity to your poetry, and there's a bounce, a rawness, and a rhythm in the way you read the poems. My two questions are, is Japanese your first language? And do you write mostly in English, or do you sometimes write in the Japanese language, or you write in English and then you translate it into Japanese?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Araceli. So my first language is Japanese. English is my second language. So my both parents cannot speak English, and I grown up in Nagoya, like the Nagoya castle there, you know, and I have a little kids running around the Nagoya castle. But when I went to Nanzan Junior College, my life was a bit changed. I started learning how to write in English. And then eventually I got the opportunity to become an exchange student at the Indiana University South Bend. And there are several great poets and writers there at the Indiana University South Bend. And then I learned from David Dudley, Kelsey Parker, Nancy Batakin. They are all great writers. Then I started writing more and more and more in English. So my first poem was written when I was like 23 in English. By then I wrote in English essays or school assignments, but I never I never practiced creative writing until when I'm 23. Then another question was, I write in Japanese. Yes, I teach actually Japanese composition as well. But I don't write Japanese fiction or poetry. It's a very different than English writing, but I still do translation. I do translate 9th to 12th centuries waka poems, also old essays, and occasionally I translate many small pieces.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. And since we're kind of on this topic, I wonder if maybe you could speak a little bit about if your work with translations with the waka poems, and also just as the translations editor for RHINO and for Tupelo, if that in any way informs your own poetics.
So I think I am a very unique position here. First, I learned Western style of writing, the poetry writing. Then I go back to my own language and the translations. So what I'm doing, waka poetry translation. So waka poem is 57577, like always that type of format. The 57577 Japanese syllables. So traditional translation, a lot of English scholars, that teachers from Columbia University or many scholar people try to translate waka poems, but I don't think they are successful, but not yet successful. That's my impression, because when I think about waka poem, the first thing is beauty. How can I translate Japanese beauty into text? 57577 as a one block, like 57577 as a one stanza. I don't think this is beautiful. I think something huge thing is missing. Then when I start studying waka poetry format, the origin, it's very interesting. The origin of those waka poems are decoration. So people collected 100 poems, and the old editor from the 12th century, he decided to put the art on his or other paper decoration at the house, which means that are they any line breaks? Decoration means you don't have to do 57577 5-line as a one paragraph format. That I thought. Then I start looking around, how Japanese waka poems were written as expressed as a line breaks wise. So my translation is a bit unique. So with that knowledge, I don't do traditional waka poems. I do more free writing style, that more like the text collage. I use a lot of space, visual effect, but still true to the original text. So maybe that's called creative translation. But recently, there are so many translations have a little bit that it's of course it have to be truthful for the main text, the main resource. But the creativity or localization is important to tell somebody who idea of that target language. So that's my current interest of a translation, and then it's very interesting. And then I'm still learning. I'm excited to study more at the Breadloaf Translation Conference as well.
Thank you for answering that. And we can feel free again if you want to put more questions into the chat, or if you again want to use the little hand raise function. We still have some time. I was wondering if you could speak to We Face the Tremendous Meat on the Teppan, the questions that seem to pop up. Do we forget why we survive? What is new to us? Is age full of promises? I thought this was sort of a beautiful sort of anchor that pulled throughout the text collage. But if maybe you could speak a little bit to those questions, maybe what they meant to the speaker in the poems.
Okay, let me go back. What is that page number?
Let's see. I think there's 16 and 18. Do we forget why we survive? I think what is new to us is 17.
Yes. It's that like a human disappointment, isn't it? So the behind of this creative process, so just this section, I was taking care of my nephew and niece, and they had American candy and then started running crazy, sugar high, and that's amazed me. And little kids eating sugar, running crazy, and then adults are not dealing well with life. So it's the human disappointment, but also I'm a part of that worst cycle. And then I am so amazed you guys read my book so detailed and careful. I am a very, very thank you. Thank you so much for reading so carefully.
Well, I mean, there's so much to talk about. And such beautiful images. I mean, aside from, I think, like you said, the human disappointment or just the questioning that comes with the human condition, I think we kind of connected with a bit in with those questions that punctuate the collage overall.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so the sugar is one of the elements in my chapbook, like same as a peach. So my grandfather, one of my grandfather was in China during the World War II, and he had a sugar. That's the reason he came back to Japan and he sold those sugar. That's the reason he could survive. That was one element of sugar. And then now, back in my story of little niece and the nephew, they are running crazy like Halloween nights. I know those kids eating crazy with sugar. So that is a part of text collage. So connecting to memories in not not following the time, past, future, current, connecting each other, collage each other with the key elements such as sugar or ant or peach. There is so many elements in here to tied together to make a main narrative. Yes.
Well, yeah, it's great to hear you talk more about that process, because it seems, again, why it made sense to create this as the text collage instead of the original with the graphic poetry that it started as, to pull all those aspects together, or to mosaic all those aspects.
Yes,
together.
exactly. And then so now you probably understand it's hard to accomplish this sort of moment with graphic. So text collage is more efficient and a more dramatic of impact for readers.
There was another question in the chat from Blue, who was asking again kind of about just the use of art, and said, would you ever consider using an artistic collage of photographs as well, or have you for your work?
Good question, Blue, because a photo is my nemesis. So if you visit to my Working On Gallery, I have an online gallery called Working On Gallery, and each month, monthly, I have a guest, and then they talk about creative process. This month's guest is a photographer from Art Institute of Chicago. So he's a senior photographer. So he's taking archive photo, historical, pictures every day. The recent one is the Salvatore Dali's picture. So he faced the Dali's picture and taking pictures. So how awesome is that? But so I get along with him, and then I asked him, how can I take a picture? Because I am so not good at taking a picture. Even though we have a cell phone, we have so many great tools of a cell phone. Oh, I am not very good at it. To be honest, when the publisher or journals, everybody call me, Naoko, could you send me a better quality of your graphic poetry picture? And then I'm like, no, I'm going to send you actual art. You can keep it, just do by yourself. I cannot take a picture. So then, yeah, I have to learn about picture collage or computer collage. That's I'm all interested in it, but I am not good at it. Period.
Well, yeah, maybe that'll be the next project eventually.
Yeah, future.
Well, I think we're almost out of time here. I know it's it's definitely late on your end of the spectrum there, but I wonder if we could conclude with a question. So it's kind of a two-part question. I love Fuji Hub. I think it's such a welcoming way to flex your literary citizenship, to connect with other writers and artists, and just to, I think, to inspire. So, if there was someone who was maybe looking for a way to connect with other writers, artists, if you could give some advice or maybe talk a little bit about the impetus behind putting that together and how you seek to connect with others through Fuji Hub.
Thank you so much for mentioning Fuji Hub. Yeah, I like developing my website, but it's no longer like my website. It's becoming a community site, which is unbelievably, I'm so happy about that. So I learned one word from my dear poet friend, Angela. She's another teacher, the guest teacher, right? The word is tribe, poetry tribe. So we have our poetry tribe. You guys are my poetry tribes because you guys read my work, analyze, critique, and then pick up good parts, bad parts, learn from my materials. So you guys are definitely parts of my tribe. So one, it's important to find your own tribe. But second, however, you don't have to always be together. Because of something like this, I have my good friends all over the world. I don't meet them every time, maybe once in a year, or even though emails, I don't talk to them often, but they inspired me all the time when I meet or when I exchange emails. Those are also part of tribe. So this is the most difficult part, to balance between group and yourself, how your art locate. That's you, it's your job to focus on that. What is your spine? What is your core of creativity? Then don't worry, you are not alone. Sometimes writing or creating art is sometimes very lonely, but it's not lonely because you have a tribe. You have a me, now you have a me, or your fellow writers or teachers. And then over the years, you are going to meet another poets or writers or fellow artists. And then your tribe is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And then also I'm hoping your responsibility is become bigger as well. So a lot of people would like to share work, but what do you do for your creative community? I think it's a creative community. To create a safe creative community is important. You actually in it. You become a part of like parts of like a force moving forward to the next future, next generation of art. We are all creating. That's I try not to forget all the time when I'm discouraged or when I'm not gonna do it anymore. Like a toss it, you know.
Well, thank you. Wonderful advice. And I think there's always that image of the writer, all alone, tapping away. But in essence, it's creating the community and reaching out to the community is so important. So right, and that we can find our poetry tribe, our fiction tribe, whoever our tribe is, and allow that to enrich us as we continue in our creative endeavors.
Exactly. And then tribe, it doesn't have to be one. I have a music tribe, poetry tribe, cooking. There's so many other things out there. And so my advice probably is don't do too much in a narrow little box. Open up and then enjoy this moment of our life. Taste new food or smell flowers, buy flowers. Then things is going to be just totally different than you expecting.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, Naoko. And we can do one more round of real applause. If you want to unmute yourself, let Naoko hear it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you again to all of us, or all of you for joining us. And again, to Michael and Keiko, the Okumas, thank you again so much for allowing us to make this happen. And, I would say get home safely, but, in case if you're not home, get home safely. And thank you again to Naoko. And everyone check out Fuji Hub. Go on and join that community. All right, thanks again, everybody. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you, Naoko.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.